newly inaugurated Dangote petrochemical facility based here in Lagos, which has been described as the largest in sub-Saharan Africa and the largest single train refinery in the world, with investment funding pulled from both local and international banks, including support from specialized institutions such as the African Export-Import Bank or Afrexim. This is surely one big-ticket transaction that has caught the eye of industry big names such as NJ Ayuk. Is the executive chairman and founder of the African Energy Chamber based in Johannesburg, South Africa. Great having you on Arise Exchange tonight. Ayuk, great. I'm sure you're a friend of Nigeria, so I understand. I'm sure you're keeping one eye on this very huge facility. Give me the wider Pan-African context of this Dangote refinery that was inaugurated today.
This is a game changer, not just for Nigeria, for Africa, and for the oil and gas industry. And where else could this kind of game-changing project happen besides Nigeria? If you look across Africa, you are seeing where people are saying now that we need to use to export crude oil to get products right back into Africa. And Africa's largest market, Nigeria, is basically leading the way by saying this no more. No more are we going to do this, but this is so inspiring to many African entrepreneurs and energy investors across the continent that this can be done even in a smaller scale in East Africa or Southern Africa, or even in other West African countries, because we are dealing with an issues where energy security for many Africans is still not there. And this Dangote refinery really drives it. Big thing, big time game changer, and this is it's really happening, and it has happened nowhere else but Nigeria.
You're working with the Afrexim Bank, advocating for an energy bank in Africa, in which Africans will finance energy projects themselves, putting our mouth where our money is and vice versa. So do you think this is one project that makes a case when you saw about 12 Nigerian banks actively supported Dangote, as Nigeria's central bank put it today, to get this project to completion?
Absolutely. What this means is that African banks and African energy institutions are putting skin in the game. Before, in the past, we would have to go to Europe, go to Asia, go to America to even start or get a hearing about this kind of projects. Now these financial institutions are coming back and are saying we can go on big ticket items which nobody expected. You can see the the East African crude oil pipeline taking a big hit right now because of they need an extra 1.8 billion to get it done. But African institutions now are really showing that they can step up to the plate. When a project is bankable, when a project makes sense, it can be done. Now it calls on the private sector to really bring all these bankable projects and get it done. And I think credit has to be given to Aliko Dangote and his group on how they got this. They persevered, they were on it, they never backed out, they never took any of the naysayers and say we are not going to do this. African financial institutions need to step up, and Nigeria, and they did that on this project, but we need them to step up more because Dangote has basically de-risked a lot of Nigerian upstream, and that is what this really. That's why this is so amazing at this moment.
Do you think this Dangote refinery is a wake-up call for East Africa, for example? Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, and the East Coast are also talking about getting more refinery on ground, including a few other African countries. I'm sure you've got the entire African footprints on your palm, by the way. So because of the advocacy organization that you run out of South Africa, yourself and the rest of your team across the continent. So do you think this makes a case for Africa to do a whole lot more in building local refineries, using local content, using local money, and make sure that we get our own fair share of this energy journey, sustainability of products on the continent?
Absolutely. This is the best test case for that. And I tell you this, what do you think would happen tomorrow if Western nations say they don't want to receive crude coming out of Africa anymore? We would have stranded assets. So This is, if we build our own refineries within Africa, we will be able to refine our own crude and be able to serve our own communities with products, because there is a market in Africa. 1.4 billion people across the continent. They need products that they're not getting. But also, what you're also going to see with them across East Africa, which they're already doing that in Uganda, by the way, with the East Africa crude oil pipeline. They're doing a $5 billion refinery that a lot of the crude is going to go right in there to take care of energy security. We need to see a lot more of that happening across the continent, because when that happens, we create jobs and we create opportunities for small businesses. But also, it challenges governments to behave well and behave themselves with providing tax credits, tax incentives for these small businesses to get right up and do it. Because let's not just look at capital coming in. Capital goes where it's welcome. And even these banks are very sensitive to really put money where they are welcome. We need to continue challenging the politicians to watch their behavior and really start providing those incentives and creating that enabling environment, and also dealing with the sanity of contracts. And I think this opens that door for us to make that case for more free market intervention into our energy system.
Well, the bigger picture of private and indigenous investment in Africa, refining capacity to save dollar imports. You're heading to Paris on June the 1st, next week, Tuesday, to go on the next leg of your African energy chambers invest in Africa's energy meeting with folks in Europe. You've gone into Dubai, you've done London, you've done a few other countries around the world. So what will be the message here that, look, we can do it? This is almost $20 billion in Nigeria. You folks in Europe can still support us because we got what it takes in Africa to do it. What's your message? What will be the center point of your conversation next Tuesday in Paris?
Africa is doing it. Africa is open. Come join us to do this. If you look at the Dangote Refinery, it's a testament for that Africa is doing it. But more importantly, the Dangote Refinery is also saying that you don't necessarily have to invest in more refineries. You could scale up. You could look at petrochemicals, urea, ammonia, NPK plants, and even doing different kind of things to really see that you can join these kind of projects and really make it. It's time for Africa. It's time to really see that we attract capital, because at the end of the day, what has been the biggest bottleneck for African entrepreneurs, the biggest bottleneck for African upstream developers and energy producers has been that big hold back on financing. So our focus in Paris is connecting with the traditionally important African players like Total Energies, Perenco, Moreland Prom, and many others to really say, this is the time for us to drive up. But most importantly, is having Nigerian companies like Owando being in there, projecting and doing deals and getting more. Because at the end of the day, we need to get deals done. So what will happen after Paris, we would be looking at them signing a lot more deals at Africa Energy Week in Cape Town. And Nigeria is really leading the way. That's why, first of all, you say I'm a friend of Nigeria. I love the country. I need a passport tomorrow. And I think when we get this done, it really opens up and creates more opportunities for a lot of young people that are really starving to have opportunities. And God bless you, Dangote, for this great project.
I'm sure you've been in Nigeria at least twice in the last couple of months. You were in Abuja a few weeks ago with the president, with the Secretary General of the APPO, Dr. Omar Farouk of the African Petroleum Producers Organization. What's the key message here for Nigeria? We're going to have a new president and a new administration started on May the 2019, just a couple of days. So what do you think the moving forward should be, the future forward action line should be for Nigeria to attract more investment and raise the level of the country's oil production? Drill, baby, drill. That's your message. Those three words that we need to ramp up from 700, 900, 1.6 to 2.2, 2.4 million barrels per day, as much as we can get.
I can tell you, when I meet President-elect Tinubu in his face, the first thing I'll tell him is drill, baby, drill. We need to drill more in Nigeria to get to ramp up production. It is not acceptable that Nigeria is right now producing less than 1 million barrels. We need to scale that up. The capacity in the country can produce about 2.2 million barrels. We need to scale that out and move faster. But we also have to move and not just stick with drill, baby, drill, but also go with gas, baby, gas, because we need to get gas moving. And I really see how we can deal with things like energy poverty and LPG. 90 million Nigerians don't have access to electricity. That's a big job for this new incoming president to take on. And we have to stand with him to push that. But lastly, keep the environment open, comply with the Petroleum Industry Act, and sign. There are too many projects in Nigeria that are stuck in the hand of bureaucrats that are not being approved. A lot of Nigerian entrepreneurs need to have project signs, project approved, and project launch. Just get the bureaucrats to move and get the business people to move on projects. If we do that, you would really unleash Nigerian potential, and we will be keeping this president. We'll be giving him the support, but we'll also be keeping them honest as we do at the Energy Chamber.
Great speaking with you. As always, NJ Ayuk, Executive Chairman and Founder of African Energy Chamber. Thank you so much, and see you in Paris. Have a pleasant evening, and wish you all the best.